Hello and welcome to the Nerve Guys podcast where we discuss movement from the point of view of the brain. My name's James and today we're answering the question, what is going on with the Twisties? So if you're not familiar with the term, that's the gymnastics term for the mental block that you get where, you're a elite athlete, the top of your field, and somehow you've just suddenly forgotten everything you know about the whole sport. I believe it has other names in different sports. Golf, I think, is called the Yips. But yeah, just that mental block when you're at the top of the game. What is going on there? How do you get rid of it? Can you get rid of it? And I'll be sharing my take on it, which I think might be a little bit different from what people normally go with. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Before we get into it, this is brought to you by the Neuroband, the wearable vision and balance training tool designed to improve posture, focus, and coordination. I'll talk more about that at the end. Now, let's talk about the Yips. Okay, so Twisties, Yips, whatever you want to call it. I think the most famous example recently has been Simone Biles. Kind of reported having loads of sort of confidence and performance issues during major tournaments like Olympics and World Championships and things like that. And it's pretty unfortunate when it happens to people at high levels like that because especially somebody like Simone Biles, who's getting a lot of media attention at the same time, people can be super brutal about it. And to be honest, hearing about those things makes me pretty upset and pretty angry for those people because if you've put your entire life on the line, you've kind of sacrificed more than anybody else to get to where you want to be. And then when you're having a bad time, the people who are supposed to be on your side, like the journalists from your own country, start turning on you and literally aggravating the problem that you're trying to get over. Yeah, that's just not a good time for me. And I think Simone Biles is a really good example of that, where all the hard times for dropping out of things and all this stuff, people being like, how could you do this to your country? And it's like, well, yeah, but how could you be you for your country? You didn't even go and achieve anything. You're just sitting on your sofa. I don't know. I'm not going to make this one of those podcasts. It just bugs me. You want to quit and you did the work, you get to quit. That's how it is. But that was an example of going through this mental block that just makes you not able to recall all of the training, all the preparation that you've done. And people kind of explain it in loads of different ways. I think the classic sort of explanation is literally that, just your emotional system has come and hijacked all of the neural pathways that you had ingrained into muscle memory. So you've sort of trained these things so that they're just totally reactive, but then your emotional state comes and changes that due to whatever stress or whatever that you're under, and suddenly your brain it's almost like you've set your brain up in a different orientation. And so even when you're looking at all the well-ingrained skills, because you're looking at them from a different angle, it becomes really hard to engage with them. You need to the thing you need to figure out how to do is to orient yourself back to looking at them from the correct view. This isn't a totally fair comparison, but if you imagine the scenario of Pavlov's dogs, where he's sort of training them, where he rings a bell, gives them food, and then they learn unconsciously learn that when the bell rings that the food's going to come, so then they start salivating, and that kind of proves this sort of conditioning that the brain can go through. And one of the things that happened with Pavlov was he discovered when he took the dogs on tour and put them in like a different environment, sometimes it didn't work. He could ring the bell, but because the dogs were like stimulated with other stuff, it wouldn't trigger the same kind of actions and mechanisms. And so it's not the exact same, but from that kind of angle, I guess you can kind of see similar comparisons. So, you've done the training and you've trained yourself to not have to think about it. Now something's come along and made you start thinking, and suddenly that thinking has just like disrupted this entire pathway from the top to bottom. Now, when it comes to treatment and how do you get out of this conundrum, most of the advice is, and the most probably effective advice that people give is you got to go back to basics. So, take yourself right back to all of the basic skills, and you just start training them again in the way that you normally would have. And eventually, you probably won't find that you need to go from 0 all the way to 100. You'll probably find that doing about like 30% maybe of all these basic skills and basic work, suddenly you find that, again, you've sort of shifted the picture, you've reoriented things, and then it's easy to jump back into the kind of unconscious zones that you're used to being in. And that's like the most popular approach. I guess it's the approach that works in the long term, not particularly useful when it's, somebody in the middle of their gymnastics competition or golf tournament, and the thing happens in the moment. Unfortunately, in the moment, there really probably isn't a huge amount of work that you can do, but I would probably argue that there's some preparation work that you can do that can be pretty good. So we'll get to that after. The second most popular thing that people recommend when it comes to these mental blocks is actually going through talking therapy. So sometimes, I think in like some of the popular cases, people talk about like trauma in their past or like just extreme stresses that they've been through. This doesn't always have to be the case when you're getting these mental blocks, but generally, if you're putting yourself into such a strong emotional state that you forget all of the kind of basic conditioning that you've put yourself through, there's probably a high degree of stress that's causing that emotional state to begin with. And so talking therapy gets recommended a lot as an approach that you can take because it's a really good way to like kind of push the buttons, nudge you towards what is causing big emotional reactions, and then trying to understand and analyze the behaviors and the circumstances that lead up to those emotions becoming present. So actually, what we're really saying with talking therapy is if you can get better at regulating your emotions in general, then you probably find when you get to this high stress situation that actually the Twisties effect isn't really strong enough to take full effect. So when we kind of combine these things together, my approach to how do we make people more resilient to these mental blocks when it comes to sport or art or performance, I would argue that actually one of the mistakes that we try to do is this like rote drilling of skills where they operate below our conscious level of awareness. It kind of feels like it makes sense to do this because if you can do that skill without thinking about it, then you can do it every single time. But we get shown time and time again that when people suddenly get put into different mental states, that actually changes what people might call our muscle memories, and we start adopting different approaches and different patterns. So when you look at like military applications and things like that, in the military, they don't drill you to get really unconsciously good at like drawing and firing. They drill you to do that in the as close as they can get to the really high pressure, stressed out state that you're going to be in. So they're not just going to go, okay, do this a million times until you can do it without thinking about it. They're going to put you under threat. They're going to put you under pressure. They're going to raise your stress levels really high, and then they're going to get you to train that, because what they understand is that when your stress levels go high, no matter how well you've trained something before, if you're in a different emotional state, all of that stuff just goes out the window. So one of the things that we actually should think about doing when we're training in general is we need to start paying more attention to our emotions and incorporate that into the training that we're doing, rather than trying to set it aside. So, you're coming in, you're having a bad day and you're angry. Cool. Let's show me what angry training looks like. Show me what angry basics looks like. Like, we want to keep it safe. We don't want to get people hurting themselves, but we do want people to be able to move and interact with their body. But we do want people to be able to move and interact with their body in a way that matches the emotional system, because the emotions are pretty powerful and they can provide pretty strong stimuli. If you're going to train a sport for your entire life, it's a guarantee that you've come in sad, you've come in lonely, you've come in happy, you've come in motivated. You're going to go through all of those emotions. And, I'm not saying push yourself through your worst days or anything like that, but if you're dealing with an emotion and you can tolerate it in a healthy way, then absolutely incorporate that into your training. Rather than trying to pull yourself out of it, try to teach yourself that if you are going to be an athlete performing at the top of your game, you're actually going to probably be performing with some pretty rubbish emotions at some stage or another. You're going to perform under high stress. You're going to perform during illness. You're going to perform during like other different emotional states, and keeping it as safe as you possibly can. Just bear in mind that, you can play with, well, how do I move when that happens? What does that do to change my understanding of my body and change the way that I'm capable of remembering things and executing things? So, yeah, that's, I guess, my point. All I would say is, again, this is not something to push through when I'm saying, like, okay, train yourself to be able to move with emotions. It's not, I'm having a bad day. Normally I would take the day off, but no, now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do my training. Actually, it's recognizing I'm having a bad... Let's restart that sentence. I am a world-class athlete. When I'm having a good day, I'm capable of training at level 100. I'm now having a bad day. I'm coming in angry. I've only ever trained angry maybe 2% of the whole of my career. So I'm not a level 100 athlete when I'm experiencing this emotion. I'm like a level 2 athlete. So I'm actually only going to be training basic skills today because I'm in a bad mood, and I'm going to explore what that bad mood does. Does my, my rolls or my flips feel different, and how do they feel different? Does my pain tolerance change? How does it change? Use it as a moment for exploring rather than a moment for, okay, problems at the door. You got to work harder. When you're capable of doing that, you'll find that your emotional state doesn't actually disrupt your performance as much. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Try to get my point across of like how you want to engage with this to keep it safe. I am very well aware that there's a difference between you doing this as an athlete and you as a coach trying to force someone, especially a younger person, to do some of this, to like work against their emotions, against their will. This is something to be taken very carefully. And if you're an athlete watching this and you're intrigued by it, then, take it on board and think about what that would look like for your training. If you're a coach who works with really young kids, have a rethink and just like listen and think like, is this something that I want to do? And if I do it, how easy is it going to be to get wrong? Do I actually want to be going forward with that? That's all I got for now. So let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Please do check out my product, the Neuroband by Rewire Neurodynamics. It's a vision and balance training tool designed to improve posture, focus, and coordination. This is just one of the tools that I'm most proud of sort of developing. Maybe not worth saying developing, but like, for me, it was really important to get an entry-level vision and balance training course out there, because this is such a game changer for working on different reflexes in the body, working on your ability to focus and lock into things and kind of like harness your emotions and everything. The more control you've got over your balance, the more control you've got over your thoughts, the more control you've got over your vision, the more control you've got over your movement options. So this is the Neuroband. I really think it's worth you checking it out. There's a link in the description below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week.